Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reactions interview series, where I'm joined by a guest to discuss the topic at hand, which is at quite a nice point in the season to look back and see how the season has gone, break it down and now. So let's crack on with things. I'm very happy to be joined by Mr. Kevin Campbell. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, very good, very good. It's the last time I saw you in person, we were in the Tollington. It's been a while since I've been able to join a pint with anyone, let alone your fine self. How have you fancied the lockdown? Has it not been the third one now? How are you dealing with the third one?
Well, I think I'm just trying to do as best I can. Luckily, I've been able to travel most of the time because I've been to Spain and doing La Liga, etc., etc. But since Christmas time, I haven't been able to travel. So, I've been locked down like everybody else, and it isn't great. But I've been keeping myself busy. I've been doing plenty of podcasts on the Highbury Squad, and we do something every day for 5 days, and then probably leave the weekends. So, still doing interviews, still doing games, etc., etc. Just trying to keep myself busy.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you definitely are busy. I watched your coverage of Arsenal on Amazon recently, and of course, that's kind of sparked off a period, or was within the period that Arsenal have turned things around recently. And looking back, though, because we're going to go from the start of things, when you see where Arsenal are now and the point of where we've come from, did you really think it would be quite as bad at the start as it was and how it turned out to be?
No, I didn't think it would be as bad. I thought, obviously, after winning the FA Cup, that would put some confidence into the team. But what actually happened was some of the players reverted back to type. And at the start of this season, we've been pretty woeful, and I don't want to jump too far forward, Tom.
Yeah.
But I have to say, some of the experienced players have let the football club down, let the manager down. He showed them a lot of faith, and some of those players just haven't turned up to the plate to help some of these younger players. And it was woeful. We were woeful. We were 15th in the league. And it looked like we were going nowhere fast.
No, and I mean, we got to that stage because the season started off okay, because we got a few wins under our belt, beating West Ham and Sheffield United, etc. But then, I mean, what do you talked about senior players there, and I think that is certainly something that we needed the younger players to drag us out of this mess later on down the line. But is it purely down to those moments of senior players like Willian, who came in, Pepe not particularly playing well, Aubameyang had a period where he wasn't scoring goals, Lacazette had that period where he just couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo, and it was a period of time where we really struggled? But is it a lot of kind of the pressure was then put on Arteta? Do you think there was an element of responsibility that fell on the manager during that period?
Well, obviously, the buck stops with the manager, Tom. And at the end of the day, it's a results business. We all know that. But the issue is, he's not going to want to trust the youth, because the youth they've not even had a full season or whatever in the team. So he's going to rely on his experienced players to dig the club out of a difficult period. But he was putting the team out there, and whichever names you want to mention, they were playing, and it was the younger players who were shining and the experienced players who weren't turning up. I mean, I remember that Aston Villa game, particularly at the Emirates. That was one of the worst performances we've ever seen from an Arsenal team at home, Tom, if we're honest. So, again, for me, when I saw Arteta after the game, he looked shell-shocked. He really looked shell-shocked, and he was surprised at, the capitulation of the team. So it took some luck. It took some youth. It took a little bit of jiggery pokery. I don't know what he done behind the scenes. I'll be honest with you, but we saw the likes of the jewel in the crown, I call him, Saka, who's been so consistent this season. We saw Emil Smith-Rowe get a chance against Chelsea, and Martinelli came in, and his enthusiasm and his pace and everything. Chelsea was just shocked that, wow, where's this energy come from? It gave us an impetus. It gave us more. We were more on the front foot, and we ended up beating Chelsea convincingly 3-1. And that was kind of the change. Pablo Mari came in where Gabriel got sent off against Southampton. And, Pablo Mari seemed to settle. Rob Holding down. Kieran Tierney started playing better. We saw Xhaka start to play better. And it was just, everything kind of came together. But it was those kids who gave us an impetus. And I think some of what's going on has been inherited by Mikel Arteta.
Okay. Is that from hangover from all the way back, would you say, to Wenger, or is that more
100%,
Emery? Yeah,
100% Wenger. I mean, if we're honest, we know we've needed a centre half and centre midfielder. 12 years ago. It's only in the summer by Arteta who tried to rectify that issue. Yeah. So under Wenger and Emery, they never went down that route. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Gabriel, we know, is a good player. He's having to play himself back after COVID. Thomas Partey picked up an injury. You see him play. He's a Rolls Royce in the midfield. The guy can play. He makes us a better team just by him being there. But what we didn't have was, you take those two players out, the other players weren't playing well, and they all were playing bad at the same time, Tom. That's the most difficult thing for a football team like Arsenal to do, is have all your experienced players playing bad at the same time. So, it hit us, and I think it was we lost 4 games at the Emirates back-to-back, and we were going for the 5th game against Southampton. I done that game for Amazon, and then I done the Brighton game for Amazon. And luckily I got to speak to an interview, Mikel Arteta, after the game. Watched that intently, and when you watch it on TV and you watch it when you're there, you see different things, don't you? When you're at the game. I saw Aubameyang making runs and not getting the ball. I saw Granit Xhaka ignore him and play sideways. Now Partey played a ball forward for Aubameyang against Newcastle. You see Xhaka play a forward pass for Pepe against Southampton. So, people are getting their confidence back. The mojo is coming back. And Mikel Arteta's made some moves to get some of the dead wood and, disruptors out. And now we seem to be moving in the right direction, bringing in a player like Martin Odegaard. So it should be Arsenal on the up now.
I want to touch on a couple of things you said. I'm really happy that you brought up the point about the centre midfielder and the centre back that we have desperately kind of needed at Arsenal for so long, because that's something that, and that goes to, the credit goes to Edu as well, of course, in the recruitment side of things. And he's someone, along with Arteta, that's been under intense scrutiny from the fan base to do the right things. And those 2 signings were, of course, interspersed with one signing which has caused quite a lot of criticism of both Arteta and Edu for making it happen. That's been Willian. I've always kind of maintained that I don't think anyone could have seriously sat down and told me in August that Willian would have been as bad as he'd been. At the time, I was like, okay, we've got Pepe on the right-hand side. He's not settled perfectly into the Premier League. We need to bring someone in as not only just cover, but someone to push him. I didn't expect Willian to effectively come in as a starter. And I do think that one of the mistakes that Arteta did make, and of all the praise I've given him, one of the mistakes I felt he made was to kind of be too loyal to Willian at the start of the season. And I think a lot of fans felt that way. What have you made of Willian so far? And did you kind of expect this to drop off from his quality at Chelsea?
No, I didn't expect to drop off. I was pretty excited about getting somebody who's a winner into our squad, who can help not only Pepe, but we're looking at Reiss Nelson as well. Because, on that right-hand side, we didn't even consider Saka going out there. Saka was on the left-hand side. Somebody who could really, show his experience and help these guys, because he's not at the start of his career. He's kind of near the embers of the end, really. But he's still got something to offer. I think it's quite ironic. He comes in, and the first game at Fulham, and nobody could tell me after the first game at Fulham, and I know people say it's only Fulham, you still have to beat what's in front of you.
Of course.
Willian played pretty well. Everyone was like, wow, great, we can move on. But it just seemed to, everybody seemed to hit the buffers at the same time. We had Aubameyang not scoring. We had Lacazette. He was the only one really who looked half lively. And then his confidence got shot when we played Liverpool at Anfield, where he had a couple of chances. He missed them, and then his confidence went. You know, Xhaka weren't playing well. You know, Bellerin weren't playing well. The team as a whole weren't playing well. And Willian, you know, he's a new player. He weren't playing well. He stunk the place out. Let's be honest. It was terrible, and he hasn't really recovered any ground from there. While obviously the youngsters have come in, because that's going to knock, as an experienced player, that's going to knock your confidence as well. When the younger players come in, and a lad from the left who's 19 years old goes and plays on the right, and he's a match winner.
Yeah,
he's doing bits to make the team win. So obviously there's a little bit of humble pie in there as well, but not every transfer will work out. And if you look at everybody who's come into Arsenal, Cedric got questioned, Pablo Mari got questioned, Willian got questioned, David Luiz got questioned, and David Luiz, it's been a roller coaster with him, because sometimes he looks great and at other times he looks like, well, what's going on? But I think generally, I think David Luiz isn't as bad as first made out, although he's still got that crazy 5 minutes in him. You know, he's got that crazy 5 minutes in him, so to speak. But just for Willian, it hasn't quite worked out how we would like for Willian. And, you know, I feel for him at times, because no matter what he seems to do and try, it's not working out for him. But look, we want Arsenal to be playing well. And when he gets an opportunity, he has got better quality than he's showing. He has. Not to say that he's going to hit the ground running and rip it up. Maybe he isn't. But I'm just mindful that not every transfer is going to work out.
No, I think it's an important point to make, because a lot of people will judge usually people are judged on the more negative things. It's part of human nature. We notice negative things a lot more than we do the things that go well, which is a shame, because I think that one of the big positives that Arteta has kind of changed this season is to the defence. And some of the names you brought up there, the likes of David Luiz, with David Luiz playing quite a few games this calendar year, and Rob Holding being in there, who coming back from his injury struggled at first and has had to build up that kind of match fitness and match form and match sharpness. But not only that, is that Gabriel, who was brought in as well to add, and at the start of the season really looked a player, and since coming back from COVID hasn't been able to recapture that form yet. I'm sure he will get back there. But Arteta now has got a side with the joint second best defensive record in the Premier League. And this is what I can't get my head around, when people still would rather see us move on from him, because Arsenal have been crying out for a defence for years that is going to be solid, and a defence that is not going to drop a clanger every other game or drop a Mustafi, as we can call it sometimes. Yeah. And we finally got a coach that's given us this solid defence. And yes, in the final third, it's not been all daisies and sunflowers. It's not been amazing. But that, for me, from an Arsenal perspective, is so much easier to improve in the final third for Arsenal as a free-flowing attacking side and a nice passing side that we've been. And we've got the quality in players to do that. But with the players that we've had in the defence, I feel likely with how solid he's got us. Does that make sense?
Look, Tommy, of course it makes sense. But what you got to understand is the fan base are relentless, and they want everything to happen overnight. It doesn't. If let me just take it back probably a year. Mikel Arteta takes over, and if you remember our performances, the defense started to take a bit of shape, but we were really struggling up front. Then there was COVID hit. So we lost a chunk of the season. We had the restart. We weren't the greatest after the restart, because we lost to Man City and then we lost to Brighton away. Leno gets injured. And then Martinez came in, and it seemed to click for the team a little bit. especially in the cups. We beat the likes of Liverpool and all that kind of thing. We beat Manchester United, etc. But we were playing kind of cup football. We weren't sustaining it all the time. We had a terrible performance against Aston Villa at Villa Park. If you remember, they beat us 1-0. We just weren't at the races. But in any one-off game, we could beat the opposition because of the way we set up, because we had a bit of a defense. So you roll that on through the summer, you have half a pre-season, you don't even get a chance to really work with the team on what you want to. There's still the dead wood in the dressing room that you need to get out. Yeah. We couldn't get them out in the summer, so they're still in the dressing room. You bring in a few players who have got to come in and settle as well. So it's all jumbled up. Now, Arteta is getting the dead wood out. He's starting to concentrate on that defense, and it doesn't matter who plays, by the way, because he has rotated certain players. We've seen Luiz play, Gabriel play, Holding play, Pablo Mari play, Cedric play, Bellerin play, Tierney play, and Maitland-Niles play. All of those have played in the back four. And we've got joint second best defense. Our issue has been knitting the whole thing together through the midfield and up front. It's been difficult. Thomas Partey got injured, where we started to see signs of life. Now Thomas Partey's come back, we're starting to see more signs of life. We're seeing Saka doing great things on the right. We've seen Pepe come to the party against Southampton with a great through ball from Granit Xhaka, which I was very surprised that he played the ball forward, which was brilliant. But it's about the knitting together of the team, which is why he went out and got Martin Odegaard. We need to see more of these players who can pick a pass, who could release these guys, because he does have weapons up there, but we've never really been able to make the most of them. Now we've got the players who can do that. We should, fingers crossed, touch wood and all that, see an uplift in our offense as well as the defense.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if the defense can get any better, I mean, it'd be incredibly good to see that. Let's just quickly dip into the chat box and see what some of the people are saying. Jonathan Porter says, what is amazing at this is this defense also has Bellerin and Holding, and many fans would want to see those two. McCarthy says the fan base still doubt Arteta because they don't see a style of play yet and question his decision-making at times. But he's still obviously a very inexperienced coach. This is his first role, and he's only been in this role as his first one kind of a year, tutelaged under Pep Guardiola. But you can only really get better at really coaching when you've got your own club and you're doing your own thing. You can learn and learn and learn underneath someone, but until you're thrown into the fire, you that's the only time you're going to get tested. So kind of an overall evaluation, we've had some really terrible periods, but we've won an FA Cup, which some people would say has bought him extra time. Some people like myself would say it's an unbelievable achievement for a manager after just 6 months. Yeah. He's brought in players like Partey and Gabriel, positions that we've desperately needed for a long time. And then you add that to this January, which you've touched upon by saying we've moved out the Deadwood players. We've got Saliba on a loan. We've got Kolasinac's huge wages off the wage bill. And we've gone out and signed what I thought was the most important signing, was getting a backup keeper in Matt Ryan. And then we've gone out and signed a quality young player for 6 months, which people are a bit... I'm interested to get your thoughts on Odegaard, because he's a loan signing for 6 months. Some people would put the argument across, which I have noticed people in the chat box before on the show say that why would you want to develop another club's player for such a short space of time? What do you make of the signing of Odegaard? Is it smart or...
Tom, they asked the wrong question. It's not a matter of develop someone else's player. It's a matter of develop the Arsenal team.
Yeah.
People talk about Arteta hasn't got a style of play because he hasn't got the players that he wants. Yeah. He wants to play a certain way. He doesn't have the players, so he's got to get players in who he believes could do what he wants. We've never had the players. We've never had them. And it's taken him a little bit of time to start to trust the young players. The young players have come in, but he's still got to protect them. That Smith Rowe and the Sakas of this world, he has to protect them. Martinelli's had a long-term injury. These guys need protecting because these guys are the future of the football club. Okay? So Bringing in Odegaard now, he's a player. I've watched him all of last season at Real Sociedad because I cover La Liga. He's an outstanding talent. Look, I don't know if we could get him half as good as he was at Real Sociedad, we are in for a time and a half. I tell you, because the kid has got unbelievable talent. He can pick a pass, whether it's deep, whether he can beat somebody in midfield, he can unlock a defense higher up the pitch as well. And he's an unselfish player, and he can score a goal as well. So somebody like that, he's not necessarily going to take Emil Smith-Rowe's position. He can complement Smith-Rowe. He can play at 8. He can play at 10. He can play wide. The kid's mustard. But we don't have the money to go out and spend right now. What we've got to do, we've got to get players in who can deliver, who the manager believes can deliver at the top end of the pitch. Once he can open up, we haven't got Aubameyang really going yet. We haven't got Lacazette going. We haven't got Pepe going. So we need not only Smith-Rowe, but we need somebody else in there who can do something. Once we get that and we get that settled, now we're going to start to see a pattern of play on how we play. Because he's got the defense right and he's getting that midfield kind of right. Now we need that offense cooking.
Yeah. I wanted to give the chat box an opportunity to ask you a couple of questions, and they are coming in thick and fast the last 10 minutes or so. Alex McCarthy, one of our fantastic members, says, if you could make a deadline day signing, realistically, what would it be, and where do you think we're going to end up this season?
Deadline day signing. Well, do you know what I'd say? I'd say probably Edin Dzeko or somebody like that, a big striker.
Yeah.
Because you know what? When teams sit deep on us and we cross balls, we got nobody in there to head them in.
Yeah.
You know, we play small and we're quick and we're sharp around the box. But this is the problem that gets leveled at Arsenal sometimes. You know, we stuck in 35, 40 crosses and we never get on the end of them. Well, you get a striker who could get on the end of them. Now we're going to be cooking with gas. And it might surprise people. Diego Costa knows, not for us. But somebody like a Edin Dzeko, who for 6 months could do a job, come off the bench, sometimes start, and he could hold the ball up like Lacazette, and we can get crosses in, and he could get on the end of the crosses. I think that could make a real big difference to us. Finishing position, I think we'll finish in the top 6. I really do. Even though we've been so poor, look where we are. Look where we are. You know, it's and we've got half a season to go. So I see us doing a lot better than we did first half of the season. Well, we've got to.
Surely.
So I think we're going to be in the mix-up for top 6, definitely.
I can't imagine Arsenal repeating the first half again. It doesn't seem feasible. I know, touch wood, obviously that doesn't happen. But if Arsenal are able to pick up form, and with the form of the other teams around us and how they've been so stop-start themselves, and we're seeing Spurs drop, we're seeing Liverpool drop, seeing Chelsea have to change manager, which was admittedly slightly funny. But it's good to see that the other teams around have struggled, because it's enabled us to push it. And then Southampton themselves, who have had an excellent season, but to the point where people were talking about them as possible European qualification contenders, to then turn that result around, I thought that was still understated in that victory. So,
well, when you look at the big picture, Arsenal have so much improvement and upgrading to do, that the first half of the season was way below par, really, for us. Now we've got all that improving to do, the enhancement to do. We've got new players in. We've got probably the best bit of business has been getting the players out, to be honest with you. So now the culture is going to change a little bit in the dressing room as well. He's got everybody on the same page. Now is the time to do it. We struggled against this Southampton team a few weeks ago, Tom. Now we blew them away.
Yeah.
But we know that the squad ain't strong enough at times, hence why the FA Cup, game went the way it did. So that was two Arsenals. Arsenal won in the FA Cup against Southampton, then Arsenal in the league against Southampton. Chalk and cheese. But we are probably our first 15 are right there. With just the depth isn't there yet.
Zamir says, KC, what do you make of the striker situation? You touched on that with kind of the striker you'd bring in, but in regarding the players that we've got, Lacazette's got 1 year left at the end of the summer. Aubameyang's in the kind of the twilight years, if you would describe it as that, 32 to 33 he's turning, and Eddie is not impressing yet, and Balogun may be on the way out. How do we solve these problems?
I honestly think Mikel Arteta's he knows who he wants, and everything's going to be rectified in the summer. I think Mikel Arteta, he has to be ruthless. I think he's committed to Aubameyang, so that's the commitment he's got. Me personally, I think Lacazette plays really well with the young players, but I think Lacazette's going to be sacrificed. I really do. I think he's going to go and get a younger striker to play that number 9 position, that hold-up play, etc. Because you need someone who's going to be able to, you're going to be able to build around. And unfortunately, you can't build around Lacazette because he's only got a year left. And, this might be the only opportunity you get to maybe cash in on a Lacazette. So I think there's going to be some business done there. There has to be a ruthless streak in Arteta with what he's going to do with this team. He showed a bit of ruthlessness getting players out. And you know what as well, Tom? This is what I will say. A club like Arsenal have to pay players to leave. What's going on? This it's madness. Listen, It is madness. This just shows you the poor recruitment that we've had for all these years, that nobody wants our players and we have to pay them to leave. It's a disgrace. It is a disgrace. So I think this is the changing of the guard. Arteta's not going to be standing for all that. He's going to have to sweep. He's going to have to get his broom and sweep whoever he needs to sweep out. And he's going to have to bring in younger, more vibrant, energetic players to come in and do the job.
It's interesting you say about that, because again, that was something that I saw criticisms of the current regime about the players that we were kind of, some of them been paid to go, some of them we've just mutually agreed to terminate contracts, and some have left on loan or whatever, Kolasinac case. I look at this, as you talked about, using the word a ruthless streak within the executives. This is exactly what I think I and many others have wanted, is to see the club identify the problem players and move them. And I said that there is no benefit to having Socrates or Ozil in and around the squad if they're not playing. They're not going to bring any positive energy into the squad. And it actually segues quite nicely into Ed's question from the chat. He says, as a player, did it make a difference when you were around any kind of players? I won't ask you to name specific names, obviously, but were there any kind of instances in your career within a team, be it Arsenal or anywhere else, where there were kind of people that weren't playing and it led to a negative vibe or impact, and then when they left and moved on, there was that element was removed? Did that ever happen for you?
100%. 100%. It happened at Arsenal. It happened at Forest. It happened at Everton. Happened at West Brom. These are the things that happen, because there's always going to be players who are disgruntled when they're not playing. And because at the end of the day, you want to play. That's your job. That's what you get paid to do. You got to play. But when you start seeing players not leaving the football club because they're on such good money and they don't want to play football, the alarm bell should have been going off in the Arsenal fan base's head. Hold on a minute. He doesn't want to leave. So, the club took a stance that, look, spoke to the manager, Edu, etc. They've made some moves. Richard Garlick's come in as well. They've made a move and say, right, we've got to get these guys out. And for the sake of the dressing room, and you know what else, Tom? The sake of the culture. Because Arsenal at Highbury isn't the same Arsenal that we see today. That winning mentality, that club wanting to be the best, hasn't been there for a number of years. Now, Mikel Arteta wants to implement that win culture. He's got to get the players who don't want to win, who's happy to just pick up wages. So he's got to get them out. And if we have to pay them off, let's pay them off. If it's going to take us to get to the summer, then we have to start moving and shaking. That's what we have to do. And you know what? As a fan base, you cannot put a price on that.
No,
you can't.
mentality is always something in the last decade of Arsenal that has been in big questions. Do this side have the mental strength to push through results, to deal with being under the cosh, to deal with really poor situations like we saw at the start of this season? And there was times in November, December, I didn't see a way out, but they dragged themselves out.
So, Tom, I'll tell you this, and this is a great analogy, and I'm sure you and some of the people in the chat could maybe relate to this. The reason why you loved Arsenal back at Highbury and with them invincible players was because you knew what to expect. Even if they never played well, you knew they would fight. You knew they would scrap. You knew they could win. Where do you reckon 1-0 to the Arsenal come from? Because maybe we're not playing well, but you know what? We'll dig in. We'll get in the trenches. And as a fan base, you could relate to that. Since the Emirates and, some fancy football and all that, whenever teams come to the Emirates and roll their sleeves up and said, right, we're going to make it physical, Arsenal were left wanting. We heard what Troy Deeney said about, that cojones and all that. And some of the Arsenal fans took offense to that. But it's the truth.
It was the truth.
It was the truth. No matter how much we don't like it, it was the truth. Now with Mikel Arteta wants to change that. He wants to change that. He wants to get this team like what it used to be, where the fans could rely on the team defensively and offensively. And that's the team as a whole. But in order to get that, you've got to be ruthless, Tom. We have to be ruthless. And as a fan base, we've got to realize, and it's easy for the fans to say, but I don't really believe in Arteta. Well, do you believe that Arsenal are the same Arsenal that once was? We haven't won a league for 17 years. Yeah. And I truly believe, Tom, if Arsenal would have got that centre-half and centre midfielder, we would have won 2 leagues in that 17 years.
Yeah.
We would.
It's hard to disagree. It's almost impossible to disagree to think that if we'd have improved on. I mean, that summer, for instance, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but that summer where we just...
hey, Tom, I've got time. Don't you worry about that. I've got another 15 minutes. We're speaking about Arsenal here, mate. Don't worry about that.
That summer where we just signed Petr Cech and Leicester went off and won the league, and we were that team that finished obviously second with how the season finished for Spurs, but there was opportunities throughout the time period where we missed them, and we missed the opportunity to really be ruthless, and using that word again in the market, to take a player that would transform our side like Partey. I wish we'd have got Partey or a Partey-esque player 5-10 years ago, whatever. It's not happened, and we can linger on the past with the benefit of hindsight all we like.
Tom, Arsenal could have got Kante.
Oh, Tom, you're going to make me cry.
No, well, you think about it. About it. Kante was at Leicester. Arsenal could have bought N'Golo Kante, but they chose not to. Do you reckon that would have made a difference to Arsenal?
Just a tad.
Just a tad. Exactly. Get a centre half in. You get a centre half and you get Kante. We win the league. I believe we win it, and probably win it again at some stage down the line. Yeah. But when the club's mentality wasn't, we want to be the best. And this is the problem. And it's taken all this time to get a manager in to look at, because he's only been there just over here, and he has to assess everything. And he's assessed it, and he says, right, these lot need to go. This is what I need to do here. But he's having to do it on a budget, because he hasn't got the money that some of the others have got, and he has to do it on a budget. So I understand some fans ain't convinced on him. I get that. But sometimes, the only time you're going to get it is when it hits you in the face.
and that's the reality that some players have been given with Arteta now, is that they've got this reality check and thinking, oh, Christ, I can't sit on my laurels anymore, a little bit like maybe they could under Emery or at the end of the Wenger era. They can't do that. And that's why I think we've seen some players shy away, and that's why Ozil was obviously moved on now, and some other players. Like, I think it's also telling, I don't know how much you've read into this with the social media side of things, but with the messages that Kolasinac and Mustafi, 2 players that have been on the outskirts of kind of the periphery of the club, are 2 of the players that I put quite, I mean, they weren't contentious messages, but you could read between the lines quite easily with what they were saying, and they're the 2 players. Anyone else that's kind of in between the squad just put a very kind of generic message of thank you for your service, you all of this stuff. But there was always like the subliminal messaging with some of the players that are outside. And now we're moving them on, and we're moving in players like Partey and Gabriel, and not only with their mentality, but they're bloody huge as well. Like and as you talked about with like the competing on the pitch and shying away and cowering, with players like Gabriel and the physicality of him and Partey, that changes. And I see what you mean about a striker as well when you talk about Edin Dzeko. And whilst in my mind I might target someone else, and actually there was a question in the chat box about your knowledge of La Liga, and asking about Yusuf En-Nesyri at Sevilla, and obviously it's been linked with West Ham. And I tweeted out this morning saying maybe Arsenal should be looking at someone like him, 23, physical, technical, works. But the physicality and the mentality has been the big change that's needed. And I just can't for the life of me work out why anyone would move Arteta on when he's doing all of these positive things. So go on.
Tom, look, you can see he's doing the positive things. But the Arsenal fan base, unfortunately, for whatever reason, and listen, the majority of the fan base are very knowledgeable about football and situations. But this is what we've got to admit. Arsenal haven't been themselves. So how is it going to change? People straight away think, okay, if we get a world-renowned manager, it's going to change. It is not going to change. A well-renowned manager, if Allegri came in, Allegri would need money to buy the players he needs. Arsenal can't do that. They haven't got that. That's why it's no point them going to get an Allegri or an Ancelotti. Ancelotti's got the money at Everton, so we can make some moves, and Everton have been doing fine. But you look what Arteta's done. Arteta's won a trophy in 6 months. He's having to change the culture. He's having to dig out those dead wood and get them out the club. He's having to try and build something on a strong foundation in all of this mist, and deal with players who have let the club down year in, year out when it comes to the crunch. So this is what he's had to deal with. And he's gone through his tough time, and he's started to come out of it now. Now we've got the second best defensive record. Obviously need to get that offense going, but we're getting there. With Odegaard, it's going to help. But these things take time.
They do.
Tom, these things take time. And everybody thinks it's a microwave ping. No, it doesn't work that way in football. There's so much more to be done. And he just needs time. Okay, even if Arteta left tomorrow, the house doesn't even really have a foundation. It doesn't have a foundation.
In what sense does it not have the foundation? Like in what metaphorically speaking is the foundation for you that needs to be there?
But because the team, we don't even have a balanced team yet.
Right.
Because there's still holes in that team that need filling. The squad isn't strong enough, for instance, because you get Partey injured and you get another injured. We don't have enough quality to come from the bench and come in, because we're going to have to rotate the team at times. And the ones who are coming on have to be just as good as the ones who are in the team. That's my point. So again, we don't have a team or a squad that is balanced yet. So the foundation isn't right. So anybody coming in might not fancy some of the players that's actually in and around the team. They're going to want money to spend. We don't have the money to spend. So they're jumping in the same boat as Arteta's in.
And when you it's going to take so much time, and the signings that Arsenal make need to work, and especially the signings obviously that cost us the biggest amount of money. We can't go out and sign 50 million and watch Timo Werner flop like he has at Chelsea this season.
Exactly.
We can't go out and spend 70 million on Havertz and see what's happened to him. We did that with Pepe, and it has massively hamstrung us, and that's why wasn't necessarily working, and we couldn't spend another 20, 30, 40 million on another winger because we just spent 72 million pounds on one. And in a way, I felt I have had the sympathy for Arteta to keep playing Pepe at times and keep playing Willian at times, because the club has invested. Like, fans can sit on the sofa and be an armchair manager and say, why are you not playing them? Because you're the manager of a club that has invested so much money into these players. He's got to try and keep playing. He's got to try and get something from them. Eventually, he gets to the stage where even the executives see that it doesn't matter how much you play.
It's a lost cause, yeah.
It's a lost cause. And that's what Arteta has probably done with some of those players, and maybe with Willian as well. But there are individuals in the squad, and you talked about a foundation, but there is the growth of a spine developing at Arsenal with Leno in goal, who at the start of the season with the whole Martinez debate, there was a huge debate about those two. I'm pleased that we kept Leno. It would have been romantically great to see Martinez succeed, but there was no one coming in to offer Arsenal the money that we would have sold Leno for. And Aston Villa were coming along with 70 million quid that we couldn't really say no to at the time for our second, who was our third keeper a year prior.
Yeah.
And then we've got in Gabriel. We've signed Holding onto a new contract. I'm really hopeful for Holding. I think he gets a lot of undue criticism again. We've got Partey in. I think in the summer, that kind of Partey partner is the person we need to target as a priority. An Yves Bissouma type of player.
Like him. I like him.
He's great. He's a really fantastic. And I mean, I don't know how much of the I'm going to show off here with my Austrian football knowledge, but Mwepu at Red Bull Salzburg, who did really win the Champions League, he's another one we've looked at on the channel as like he'd be cheap, 23, physical, really intelligent on the ball as well. And then you've got kind of a youngster in Emil Smith-Rowe, your Sakas, your Martinellis, that's budding and coming through. And Saliba, of course, we don't know much about him yet because he's been on loan and not really been playing. And then as soon as we kind of sort out the striker situation with Lacazette a year left on his deal and Nketiah a year left, we've got Aubameyang for 2 more years. I believe firmly that there is elements of a foundation there. It's just going to require a few more ingredients to really set it on fire.
Some seasoning, Tom. It needs some seasoning. So we've got the meat. But we need to season it, and we need to wash it and put the lemon on it and marinate it a bit. So
I'm getting hungry now.
So now this is what Odegaard does. Odegaard's a little bit of seasoning, and it's a try before you try and buy, if that makes sense, because there's no clause in it that we can buy him. But I'm sure if Odegaard works out, then there might be an opportunity to then say, do you know what? Why not try and buy this kid? Because listen, Real Madrid are in. There's some debts over there in Spain. Let me tell you that you might be able to get him.
And they don't play with a 10 either. Like they don't really have a place for him. So
no, they don't. And trying to listen, that Luka Modric and Cruz, them two, they're like they're such incredible players. Modric is 35, and I'm telling you, he's playing like a 25-year-old. He's unbelievable. Cruz is just like he's just spraying balls everywhere. So it's difficult to get. As well. Valverde's the young one who's he's the one looking to break into there, and they've got some unbelievable talent. Obviously, won the La Liga last season, and Odegaard is trying to break into that, but. If he can, I believe he's of the age now. He's a Norwegian international. He's of the age now where he should be saying to himself, "I'm going somewhere to play." Now, if he can do well in this loan, I'm sure he's going to want to say, "Listen, I want to play in the Premier League and I want to play for Arsenal." So, it's great for both parties. Great for the club and it's great for him. Fingers crossed, he can hit the ground running and show what he can do. And if I was any one of those forwards, I'd be licking my lips and rubbing my hands because he has got incredible vision.
Yeah, the vision for the pass. And the pass between, the Darcy paid for Haaland for Norway in the internationals a couple of weeks back, and there was a pass for Real Sociedad last season that went viral. The vision he's got to see these passes. It's ironic that we're swapping the O with an umlaut for an O with the slash. So it's ironic that, and in a way, when Ozil moved, he was mid-20s and they no longer had a place for him. And Bale was coming in, obviously. And now Odegaard is moving off. So maybe. And people, just because there is no option, does not mean that Arsenal don't have a hope. Arguably, Arsenal positioned themselves well. He would have been integrated into the teteam. Danny Ceballos liked it so much that he was happy to come back for another year as well. Even if it means we do another year loan next season. Like that in itself is still a positive. It'd be great to get him permanently. Final thoughts, though, Kev, is... We've got a big game at the weekend. Man United yesterday, brilliant. One of the most enjoyable, 2 days ago, sorry, it was one of the most enjoyable games I've watched. Just genuinely.
Yesterday was enjoyable as well.
Yesterday was also enjoyable. Yes, it was very nice. But weirdly, that they've lost to Sheffield United. In a weird way, that worries me because it feels like now that they would have had it into them. If they would have beaten Sheffield United, being quite comfortable and confident, they might have come to the Emirates and been a bit overconfident. Now they're probably going to have their heads screwed on a bit tighter after that game. Does that result against Sheffield United concern you, that they might be coming with more impetus than they would have done, or not?
No, look, Arsenal-Manchester United is always going to be a big game. This Manchester United team, I believe they've done absolutely marvellous to get to, be second in the table or third or wherever they are at the moment. They've done great. But there's one telltale sign that I will mention. They always seem to go behind and they always seem to turn it around second half. You can't keep doing that, Tom. You can't keep going behind to teams. When you go behind to teams and teams will start working it out, once you go behind, you'll end up getting beat after a while. And that's what Sheffield United done. Now, there was some comical defending, etc. But, Manchester United haven't been great at the back. They've been good going forward. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I fancy our chances big time. Yeah. Our defense is playing pretty solid. We look to be a decent unit now. And I think we've got a little bit of impetus going forward in having a couple of form players, although they're young, but they're still making a real difference to our first team. So I fancy our chances. I fancy us to beat them. I really do. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, because Manchester United could beat anybody. Of course they can. But I fancy our chances because they're not great at the back.
No, they are susceptible. It's probably fair to say. I'm going to push you for a predicted scoreline, Kev. So be as confident as you like.
2-1 Arsenal. 2-1 Arsenal, yeah.
Good stuff. Hope that comes to the fore for sure. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Kev. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you as always. Do you want to tell people where they can find you on social media? Not in real life, because that would be a little strange.
On social media, you could get me in at #1 Kevin Campbell, and you find me on the at Highbury Squad. Most evenings we do shows, etc. So hopefully we've got a fan forum tonight. So if you want to come in, come and join us tonight at about 7:30, 8 o'clock.
There you go. Make sure you check out Highbury Squads. I've been chatting to Amanda about a possible coming over and joining you guys for a show. So I look forward to that, because me and Soph disagree on quite a lot of things. So it's
good. So do I. So do I.
So
we do battle. But we battle and debate, which is good. It's healthy, Tom. It's healthy.
No, exactly. It'd be boring if everyone agreed. So, no. And I really hope, listeners, you've enjoyed the show this afternoon. If you have, please drop a like on the video. Give Kev a follow on Twitter and myself at The Goon Talk TV. I'll be back on here at 5 o'clock for Let's Talk Arsenal. And then you're going to go, after Let's Talk Arsenal, over to the Highbury Squad to watch Kevin again this evening. Make sure you tune in for that. We will see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.